Morning, good morning, good morning. One second, get the camera on. Good morning to you all. Happy Thanksgiving. It's Canadian Thanksgiving. So we're being thankful and we're getting our harvest in. Already in, but the season to get our harvest in and to share the harvest. How is everybody today? This lovely morning. Sunny over here, sunny and bright. Woo, lot to clean up, lot to do, but we're just gonna have a quick I have to be quicker today because I have a million things to get done. The daylight hours have significantly decreased. Right now, the chickens are going to bed at just after 7. So that tells you their schedule kind of clues into, oh, it's a shift. Because before it was 8, a few days later 7:30, like it's jumping like half an hour increment. So it's very noticeable if you're paying attention. And then the clock's gonna fall back in the fall over here, which makes it dark at 5 o'clock. So say la vie. So that's what's going on over here. But a few things to discuss. And I was gonna have some things prepared, but I'm not prepared. So we're just gonna babble on for about an hour or however, and then take it from there. So there's still a lot of hurricane stuff in the media. There's a lot to do, a lot to rebuild infrastructure. This is going to be a long haul. And sooner than later, the media is going to forget all about it and it's on to the next story. So, between the Carolinas and all that happened, and then the Florida hurricane, some people got through okay. I saw a lot of people say they just, lost some trees kind of bent over. They're cleaning up and rebuilding, but there wasn't significant damage. And then others have significant damage. And then you're talking about who has insurance, who doesn't have flood insurance, and all these other aspects. And it's going to be a very challenging time. So I was, for a while now, I've been saying from last year, excuse me, I'm going to be sipping throughout some echinacea, make sure I don't get a cold, to live more simply. I'm living more simply. I'm going through, donating stuff, giving away stuff. There's a lot more to go through and just have not bare bones, but just a little bit more simplified. There's so much stuff that we have. I don't know about you all, but for me, I don't use half of it. I can't find half of it. I was looking for my immersion blender, don't know where it is because I put it somewhere else because I wasn't using it. Now I don't know where it is. Like this is the first world problems. And it's like, yeah. So I'm still going through the garage. There's been a lot of improvements. My only thing that I'm going to do is get a deep freezer for the garage. So I need a deep freezer and then have extra food and stuff there. To prepare and have things on sale and you just buy them in bulk. I am canning now. So good morning. Good morning, Renaissance, Unbiased, and Sam. I saw you, but I didn't even acknowledge you. So thank you for popping in and those in the bushes. So I'm trying to live more simply and just have what I need. And if I'm not using something or I don't need it at all, just get rid of it. Let somebody else enjoy it. As I mentioned last week, I had a relative that had things in storage and it's not knocking the person. The person lost their parents, and then you kind of latch on to the things as uh to honor your parents or to honor your loved ones and to like keep the memory, but the things aren't the memory. And it takes some people longer to figure that out because you're paying to store these items, and what you're paying for the storage, you could have repurchased them 3 times over when you add it up. The long and the short, good morning, Jova. The long and the short is that these storage units, you don't know what other people are storing. And it got infested with mice. And I guess when he finally went back to check, the stuff was pretty much useless. I'm talking high quality, expensive pieces of furniture and things of that nature that somebody could have enjoyed and had in their home, somebody who's starting out and use the stuff. And then to top it all off, the money you spent on storage, you have nothing to show for it. So I'm just saying that as an example, like let people enjoy stuff, have what you need, and all this extra stuff. Let's kind of let it go and taper it down and give it away or sell it, whatever you want to do, but let somebody else enjoy it before it dry rots. So last weekend, another family member said, you know what? They scheduled some people to help from Task Rabbit to come and clean the garage, 2 garages. And they threw it like furniture to the curb and all this stuff. and it's garbage. It was garbage weekend, and so it's like on the Monday's garbage pickup. So Saturday you're putting stuff to the curb, and people can pick up the stuff if they want it. Plus, you have the scrap metal guys who come by and pick up the stuff that's scrap metal. By the time I got there after the live, there was a guy who's making several trips. There was 2 dressers, there was a side table, I think there was a bed frame too, like, everything was pretty much going, and the friend would stand there to hold the stuff while the other guy dropped it off and then come back and pick up more stuff in their little Honda Civic. And they made about 3 trips, and they're so thankful, like, "There's nothing wrong with the furniture." I'm like, "Yeah, there's nothing wrong with the furniture, but if we're not using it and it's just staying in the garage, let somebody enjoy it." So they were so thankful. The sofa, the three-piece sofa and the single chair that goes with it, the couch, whatever you call it, I don't know what you call it, settee or whatever they call it. A family drove by in a van, pulled over, and then the wife came back and was looking. And at this point, we were in the car leaving because we had finished. And he was trying to shove it in his van. He couldn't fit. He made a call, I guess called a friend, and then they took the couch and this. Nothing was wrong with them. There's no bed, nothing. It was furniture that was just not needed. Kitchen chairs, table set, gone, gone, gone. So by the time garbage day came, there was nothing really much to left to pick up. So she got motivated. She's like, "No, no, I'm letting the stuff go. Let it go. Let somebody else have the stuff." She kept about 2 skids worth of stuff to donate to the Diabetes Association. Over here, we have companies that will pick up stuff from your house. So they're coming to pick up, I think she said in 2 more weeks. So I'll be taking my stuff over there for the pickup, and then they'll pick it up and give it to people in need. They'll sell it at the thrift shops and stuff like that. And then, life moves on. But the long and the short of it is, if you're not using it, just get rid of it. All it's gonna do is attract vermin, bugs. It's gonna dry rot. Like, come on, let it go. Let somebody else who needs the furniture enjoy it. And when you need to buy furniture again, God will bless you to buy furniture. And when that time comes, that money that you would spend on storage would be better spent. Now, what also happened, I saw in the news. I'm probably gonna talk about this again next week because I don't have anything ready to pull up. But the EPA, I believe, environmental protection, something. Yeah, the EPA was discussing the dangers of uh, fluoride. Yeah, fluoride. I'm saying fluorine, fluoride in water, and how it affects the brain function of children. They didn't say brain function, but they said something else, intellectual ability or whatever. It affects children. And they went through the numbers and what's currently in water. I think it's 0.4% is the minimum, and all these regulations, and they noticed that there's a significant intellectual decline in children as a result of the fluoride in water. But they didn't really tie it to fluoride per se. So that's the thing. It's not saying fluoride causes this. It's a noticing of, something's going on. They didn't really blame fluoride, but we all know that's been a problem for years. So I noticed a couple of days later, somewhere in Texas, I don't know if it's all of Texas or just a particular county in Texas, has decided to remove fluoride from water pending more information from the EPA. So the last thing I've read off of memory is that the low range of the federal government has their own regulations, but the EPA also has recommendations. And the EPA themselves were not following their own recommendations. So what they said was the lowest range that they use is just 0.4 microns per something or other. Don't quote me on this. This is just based on my memory. Um, Based on that, they should always be 10% or some percentage below the lowest amount. And they weren't even doing that. So going forward, there's a new number that they've recommended to put in the water, but some people, some states will not be putting any fluoride in the water, which I think is a big win. I think it's a big win. I think if you need fluoride, good morning, Rambling with the Brums. Happy Thanksgiving to you. I think if you need fluoride or whatever you need, minerals lacking, you can get that from your food, or you can get supplements for your children if you believe in supplements, or just find other ways to get those things. But the fluoride has been a problem that's been talked about for, I can recall, over 20 years. Good morning, Bushcrafter. And they're finally removing it. So for those of you who were looking for some proof, the fluoride does cause cognitive issues in children. Never mind us who've been drinking fluoride for most of our adult lives, and we got a filter when we got older. So just be mindful that sometimes you're waiting for proof, and they know the proof, but they're not going to disclose it because they don't want to disclose certain things. It's for you to trust your instincts. Um, Give me a second to read what Psalms is saying. Over here, they also be trying to make the kids have fluoride in their teeth for 30 minutes after dental cleaning. I'd be telling the dentist not to put. I've done fluoride too, thinking it was good. Not even, you live and you learn as you grow, but not even thinking because I had a sensitive tooth. I thought it would help. Yeah, just calcifying my pineal gland. It's not a good move. There are certain things that are supposed to be in small doses, and we're overdosing on things that are supposed to be good for us, but we're actually having too much. And what we do need, we're not taking them at all. So just look into that. It's in the news. I thought it was very interesting and I thought it was a good thing. I've only seen a mention of Texas removing fluoride from the water. So that's a good move. Hopefully some other states will follow because it's really not necessary. And what they put it in for, I guess, for teeth back in the day, it was never necessary. If people are lacking any minerals, let them get that from other sources. Don't just blanketly put it for everybody, and then now people are getting too much, and you can't balance people's consumption. It doesn't make sense. Plus, when you're showering and bathing, you're absorbing that through your skin, so it's just a constant problem. It's cheaper for them not to well, for us, for them to not put it in the water, and then we add it things as we need them, versus now we gotta filter our water, filter our showers, filter our sinks. Like, we're filtering everything just to remove these things from our water source coming into our homes. Now, what else did I see in the news? I noticed in the news, there's some disturbing things in the news. It's not really I don't even know how people are even allowed to teach children. A lot of teachers, and we've been hearing a lot about teachers the last, I would say, since 3 years of the heavily things have been happening before, but the last 3 years has been really disgusting. Hello, Maritza. And um the last thing I heard was there was an autistic child and the teacher broke some of their fingers. There's another story about making the black children pick cotton, I guess for a history lesson. I don't know. There's some weird stuff going on. And ever since the pandemic, there's been a lot of parents who have been deciding to homeschool their children. And I can see why. When you send your kids to school, you're thinking, fine, there's kids who bully each other and you're worrying about that stuff. That's not even the main source of your problem. The main source is the teachers and the adults who should know better. They're the ones that are causing the most havoc, wreaking the most havoc to your children. And there's another story of either a daycare or a kindergarten class. They put stickers on the kids, and the stickers have some kind of melatonin or something to help them sleep because I guess they were too hyperactive. So you went to school, you're paid to do a job to teach children, and then you realize that you don't like teaching children. So then you drug the children, sneakily to subdue them and make them docile. And then I guess one person forgot to take the sticker off, and the parent noticed, and it's caused a whole uproar. There's a problem in the school system. That's all I gotta say. So you need to be mindful of the schools you're sending your kids to, and be very active in the schools because some people are just not normal. Adults are not normal. Um, I'm convinced that they also have estrogen in the here too, because every time I would go to Alabama, I would get my cycle on the third day, no matter what time of the month we went. A lot of people mention something similar when they travel and go to other places and drinking different water. Yeah, that's not the first time I've heard something along those lines. There's definitely things in yeah, and the estrogens are also in the products in the food, so it's a problem, and it's hard to quantify unless people do research and investigate and realize that this is quantifiable. Because women have a menstrual cycle, they don't really investigate to say the normalities and abnormalities of uh, bodily functions. Unless you're bleeding out your eye, they don't really take it seriously. But sometimes you can be doing something that's natural for you to do, but it could be excessive. It could be abnormal. So just, yeah. So I was getting frustrated with the garden because I was planting some seeds for the last how long, and the squirrel keeps digging them up. The squirrel snapped my last two cannabis plants. I guess they wanted to get high, so they did. And they literally snapped them. All you see is a thin little stick. That plant didn't do very well, but the buds were ready and they were fragrant. I'm like, yeah, 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 I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do it. Not thinking that it wasn't the birds, because the birds usually land on it and they eat the seeds, but they don't snap it. So it's a squirrel got upset, I guess, because I was making a stand against this particular gray squirrel and the one black one. The two of them, I can recognize them. And it's been a war for the last 2 weeks with them. And so they snap, I guess they snap my plants. And the chickens always tell on them because I hear certain noises and they're like, ooh, just making noises. And they tell me something's going on. You better get back here. You better hurry up. So that's that. Now, as for winter, fall gardening and what I discussed last week about the importance of fall crops and like winter squashes, and I did not get a good anything. The plants didn't do well, the vines died, some things didn't get planted in time, the weather wasn't really ideal. I didn't really have everything on my side this year, but it's not, it is what it is. That's why when you have an abundance and a bumper crop, you should really preserve so that you have some for a later date, because every season is not exactly the same. And the things that you have done well in times past, you may have an off season. So that's what happened. I didn't get good crops with those things, but the leafy greens, tomatoes were pretty much okay. The herbs, no problem with herbs this year. I did the herb garden challenge. I expanded the herbs and I have so many things. It's not even, I don't have to buy tea blends really. I can use what I have and make my own blends. And I'm going to be adding more herbs when I do the next 2025 challenge. But that being said, it's important to, if you can't grow it, then at least purchase, these winter squashes from the farmers market and things like that, where it's more affordable and you can buy them by the case because they have a long shelf life. It's important. I was thinking and listening to everybody's opinions and just listening to the different lives that were going on. And it's like everything is true. There's not one person right, one person wrong. We all have different perspectives. And I think and I know the perspectives are really based on geography. Because depending on where you are and where you live, you will have different options available to you. People in my zone and colder have a very short window to grow food. So anything that we do grow, we try to be abundant and then we try to preserve it. Some people may be in a tropical or warmer climate, don't have to really worry about preserving. They'll just drop some more seeds and succession plant. So it's very different. It's not right or wrong. It's just depending on where you are, the weather conditions, soil conditions, you're going to have a different perspective. And if you have a different perspective, you probably have chosen to live in certain zones because you want that type of weather and environment. That's just the long and short. So it's important to eat raw, real food. Absolutely. I promote that myself as well. I also believe that you should preserve food, but the way that you preserve it, that's probably where people may differ, and also that depends on your budget. It's important to preserve food, but if you're spending the time to grow your food, the preservation techniques used need to be focused on retaining the nutrition of that food. So, freezing the food is great, but you only have so much freezer space. And if the power goes out, where's all that food? If you don't have things and mechanisms in place to keep the power going until the power returns, you could be up a creek and have a whole freezer full of wasted food. If the power is out for longer than you've anticipated, same thing, you could be up a creek. Is the freezer good? Yes, I freeze things all the time, but I know I'm trying to use those things within a particular window of time. I'm not freezing things for long term, years and years of storage. No, that's not the purpose. So we need to really define and isolate the purposes of the types of storage that we're using. The freezer is for long ish, but not long term storage. couple of months, maybe up to a year, but you're using the foods, putting fresh ones in and taking the old ones out and using them. That's what that is for. Dehydration may give you a longer shelf life of certain things like herbs and you know snacks and whatever you want to make. Yeah, no problem. And it does extend your shelf life. But freeze drying is probably the best thing that has come nowadays, but it's also very expensive. So I can see why many of us have yet to get a freeze dryer and we're like kind of working towards that, but that is probably the best because it preserves the nutrition, it preserves the color of the food as well and the texture because texture and color is also very important. Nobody wants to eat zucchini that was once yellow but now it looks brown because of the preservation of it. You still want those vibrant colors because we are visual when we're coming to comes to eating. So all of those things are correct. There's no right or wrong. It's just you do what you can based on where you live and your budget. But finding foods for your zone that can be stored fresh long term, winter squashes, I don't think anything can really beat that. Um, you can eat them a year later and they're still just as fresh and there's nothing wrong with them. As long as you get one that's been picked at the peak time and it hasn't been bitten by an animal, because once it's been bitten, you should probably use it. I had one that I had to give to the chickens because it was bitten. I kept it for a bit, but then the inside was getting moldy. Bacteria can penetrate the hard shell if an animal's been but has been biting that vegetable. So next year again, I am going to be focusing on more winter squashes. It doesn't really matter which one you grow, whatever you prefer, and sometimes you want to try new things, but try to check and see what's going to be prolific, what's going to be, give you multiple harvests, what, pests may attack it because them vine borers and things like that can destroy a whole vine. And just figure out what you're going to do and do it. Now, nutrition is a problem. I've been watching some things, documentaries and things on the news, and it's like we've all heard this, it's not new, but the food is not as nutritious as it was like in the 60s or the 50s, let's say. And that's based on the soil health. Commercial growers are not practicing regenerative or permaculture growing options. It's fertilizers grow, fertilizers grow. Fertilizers cannot give back what is needed in the soil. In my opinion, I didn't research this. It can only give what the plant needs for a limited time, but it's not building the soil. And what we've learned in recent years, and what was always the case, but people didn't really jump on it, is the soil is a living organism. It's a living thing. It's not dead. It has a whole ecosystem, biodiversity that we can't even see, that's invisible to the naked eye. Yeah, we can see worms, potato bugs, we can see things like that, but there's other things that are happening. There's a whole web that's going on, going down deep into the earth. And you cannot put synthetic chemicals and think that you're going to continue to get good harvest. You're killing the mycelium in the soil. You're killing the microorganisms that are keeping the soil alive and making the nutrition available for the plants in the first place. And we're thinking that our stuff is going to be better. It doesn't work like that. So those of us who are growing food, and when you first started, you felt pressured, oh, I got to use this, I got to use that. Everyone's using all these products in these bottles. No, you don't. You have to use anything in a bottle. You don't have to. If you want to, you can be very particular because everything is about balance. Because you can be attracting some things into your garden that you don't want to attract, and there's not something to balance it. So, for instance, you may attract certain bugs, and now there's no predator to take those bugs out, and now you're relying on spraying and things to deter the bugs from your crops. I've mentioned this before, but it's just we need to review it. Your garden is about balance. You're never going to get rid of anything or everything. The bugs are going to find you. They're going to find the food. The same way people find you when when a hard time comes and then all the looting is going on and all the violence is going on. That's not on the news, but you know it's happening because people, that's the nature of the beast. You're attracting things. They're going to find your food. Your job as a gardener, as a homesteader, as a whatever you want to call yourself, is to provide diversity and balance. So I have a lot of wasps right now because those pears from the neighbor are falling into my yard. There's a lot of wasps. I don't really bother them. If there's something on the ground, I don't pick it up until the wasps are gone at night, and I throw the fruit over to the neighbor's side because it's his tree. And the wasps are also feasting on other bugs. There's an infestation of bugs in our neighborhood, in our province, I believe. These red bugs. They don't look like ladybugs, but they're like a red and black bug. I did not see them all my life until about maybe 5, 10 years ago. We saw a few here and there, and literally, when you go outside, your house and buildings are just covered with all these bugs. And it's been getting worse and worse. I don't know what brought them here. I don't know. Sometimes, shipping and receiving all the stuff that goes back and forth. That's how bugs enter another country, and it can be very damaging. Oh, you have them too? I don't know what they're called, but everybody knows those red and black bugs, kind of like an oval. And they're all over the place. And from what my former neighbor, my parents' former neighbor, they have moved now, but we still keep in touch. They like the seeds. So she noticed that, like, the Rose of Sharon, when things go down, like, they're eating and feasting on the seeds. When a plant is going to seed, they're eating the seeds, and they're nourishing themselves. When you think they're gone, they're not. I've watched them when I'm trying to crush them burrow into the dirt and, like, stay down there. They're very difficult to get rid of. I haven't really tried to spray them with anything. I don't really want to spray chemicals because I'm growing my own food, so I haven't gone there. But I can't see what, like, unless I manually pick them off and put them in a soapy water, there's too many. If you think squash bugs are bad, they're all over the place. All the parks, all the trees, everywhere you go is just these bugs. And they really populate in the fall. And then in the spring you're screwed again because they're all over the place. Then there's a bug that eats my irises, my lilies down to nothing. And they live in the soil. So I don't know what the solution is, but I think when it comes to your garden, we're gonna have to do more with the soil in terms of having things that will eat these larvae and eat these eggs. Because in the spring, the cycle starts again and we are screwed. Flies. I haven't had that much flies, but when I had the chickens, yeah, there's a lot of flies. But ladybugs, I saw a few, but not many. There's wasps. I did see a praying mantis, one or two in my garden. I haven't seen them in years. And I did see 3 frogs in the same week. So the frogs haven't gone. They're still around and they eat flies. So now because I have more flies, you see how nature works? Because of the chickens, I do have more flies. So I do have traps for the flies. But the frogs have come back because they eat frogs and they eat flies and mosquitoes. And the bats that have kind of been missing in action, the bats are back. Hey, I'm Tamika, and I think it's a form of a stink bug. Okay, whatever it is, these bugs are problematic. But they haven't eaten my crops or damaged my crops, so I'm not complaining about that. But they are a problem because if you have plants that are going to seed and they're destroying the seeds, they could affect your ability to have seeds for the next season, especially certain rare flowers and rare plants. So you're going to have to watch out for them. And that's the problem. I think they're attracted to my flower garden, which I don't really maintain. I just kind of let it do its thing. And I haven't harvested the seeds. I kind of just let them self sow. But I'm gonna have to pay more attention because these bugs are all over the place. Literally, I went to the door to go out to get the mail, and they're on the door. They're like, I had to smash a few of them, and they're hard to smash. You have to kick them about 10 times with a hard shoe just to make them crack the shell. Like, it's a problem. Maybe they came over in some mystery seeds. I think they came over. This is I know people don't like certain rules and regulations. Good morning, Nikki. But there is a reason for some of the rules and regulations. So I have worked with in shipping and receiving and certain things in companies. And I have a friend I haven't talked to in years, but she used to work for the company we call, I'm not going to say the name actually, a company, and they make skids. So that's when I kind of learned way back that the skids are sprayed with a certain anti-fungicide and whatever, because before they weren't. So you're shipping and receiving across different countries on ships, and sometimes these things infest the skids. Not so much now because they spray them and they fumigate them so that insects and stuff cannot live in the wooden skids. But you're talking about shipping and receiving, they can come in the food, they can come in the cartons and cases of bananas and whatever these people are shipping back and forth. Sometimes the ships that they ship back and forth are infested with certain insects. I remember I was told, I don't remember when it happened, but a ship was stopped in the ocean and they weren't allowed to even come near to the shore to even dock because there was officer went out and they check sometimes randomly and there was an infestation and that could devastate an entire ecosystem because that's how we got the Japanese beetle whatever problem over here, and that Japanese beetle has taken out so many trees. This is a problem. On a hot day the back of your house is full of them. Yep. And even though it's getting colder, we had a couple of hot days, which is exactly the days that I've seen them. Like today's sunny and bright. I bet you out about 12 o'clock they're going to be out there. Yeah, exactly. They don't have any natural predators. So I know I've done some things as well. I brought things from overseas in my little suitcase and your little seeds because you got to have them. And I know people who brought plants and they're not supposed to bring. But there's reasons why there's rules to this. And if you're going to do stuff like that allegedly, make sure that the thing is washed properly. There's no bugs on them. We had a statue that was brought over from the Caribbean. I don't know which island, one of the islands. And it's, you get a statue of like, a parrot or whatever, the little carvings. We had it on the in the living room on one of the stands. And I turned it over and there was like wood dust underneath it. So something was inside of it chewing or whatever. So we had to get rid. So who knows where that went? If that brought bugs to the country, it wasn't intentional. But you get these wood carvings, and depending, it hasn't been sprayed or fumigated. And I know we don't like chemicals. I don't like them either. But if you're carrying a carving from some island, you bring it home. All of a sudden, there's dust. Something's juicing with J. Things are in it. It's a problem. And exactly, we don't have predators for that insect, and it can ravage a whole eco. You talk about the trees at High Park in Toronto, infested. It's a problem. So we have to be mindful. I was even saying I have to retract something. Like, oh yeah, just guerrilla gardening, plant things in places. And it's like, no, you can't do that. If you are harvesting seeds that you've seen already in the park, like, something that's natural to that area is seeding, then take those seeds and you can guerrilla garden. But don't buy seeds from the online stores and say, I'm going to plant this red lettuce in the park so that when the apocalypse comes, I'm going to have this salad 20 years from today that I'm going to plant and guerrilla garden. I had to rethink that because somebody mentioned something. No, 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 no. Only plant things that are native to that area. So that means looking around and seeing things that are naturally going to seed and doing that, because you could ruin the whole balance of that ecosystem with your guerrilla gardening, and then you buying seeds from the online and just sprinkling all these things randomly with no thought of anything. So from now on, don't do that, because some people just do some foolishness and make things worse. Put thought and investigation into it. Don't just go and start sprinkling seeds because the apocalypse is coming and you have never once made a salad in your life. So how dare you go and sprinkle? Oh, I'm going to make salad. No, you're not. Anyways, invasive species like the Chinese carp. Exactly. Everything. So we think that we know, but we really don't know. So there is some benefit to some of these agencies that are giving us knowledge and advice because this is what they do. So don't think that, oh, the government's trying to oppress me and suppress me. No, do some research. It's not always what you think. Rambling saying, I received a shipment of machines from Mexico. It sat on the tarmac for 2 weeks. It was full of bugs. I said we should spray it and was told to shut up and put it together the cheapest way. Yeah. And that's part of the problem, unfortunately. Now we're at a stage in this world where it's kind of too late because of all the shipping and receiving. A lot of stuff has spread across the globe, and we have to kind of take control. Not everything is supposed to be brought everywhere. And I know we love to have our native species and our native plants, but we really need to do a lot of more research. And if you're going to plant things, plant them in pots, maybe in your house or in a section. Don't just plant and throw seeds in the ground because it's once they start, it's very hard to stop them. And you think you know best, but you really don't. Let's just be observant and see how nature is going, what's growing in our neighborhood naturally. And if you take a look, all the weeds that are popping up in your lawn, I have goldenrod. I never planted it. I saw some like sorrel, not Jamaican sorrel, the leafy green sorrel, and purslane, I think it's called, and other things that are growing naturally. Take a look at those. Go foraging and pay attention and see what naturally grows in your area, because you adding in Caribbean and tropical things is not really gonna help. You're gonna make things worse. If you're gonna experiment, do them in containers and not in the ground where you may lose control of that particular plant. Because most things, if you're honest, hey Tampa, most things are invasive if we're really honest. I was reading up because I have some evening primrose. I planted it for the first time for the herb garden challenge of 2024. Nothing happened. I have lovely bushels of leaves. I did research before, but you forget because there's so much going on. You can't keep up with everything that you research. Went back and reviewed evening primrose. It's a biennial. Biennial. It seems like most of the plants that I do like, just naturally, when I look them up, they're biennial. So they're not going to flower till next season. I can harvest the leaves and dry them and use them for certain herbal concoctions. Hey, Barb, but it's a biennial. And that plant spreads by seed. So the second year, it's going to spread seeds all over the place. And it will also spread by roots, like some types of comfrey. So it's in a pot right now, but that's truth for me to share because if I'm planting something new, yeah, it's an herb garden challenge. We're so excited. I want to learn about herbs. Plant things in containers because you probably need to do some deeper research. And when you realize it, these plants are all plants are probably very invasive. And if you want more of a balanced control environment, you probably need to use a container. If you have a large property and you don't mind them taking up certain areas, then fine, go ahead. But don't just, oh, I'm going to plant. No, it's not going to stay in that little spot. Evening primrose has tubers or some kind of root network, and the seeds are very invasive. I saw snapdragons in my walkway. I haven't planted snapdragons in this house, at this house, in about 5 years. The first year I did them, it didn't come back. It didn't seed itself. I haven't seen them since. 5 years later, why am I seeing snapdragon popping up between the interlocking stone? So let's be a bit mindful. I'm not to fear mongering. Hey, Howie, but let's just be careful because sometimes we are bringing things into our area that it's going to be a problem. My sister's neighbor, same thing. He put mint in the ground and it's 20 something, how much years, and we're still digging up mint. We're still digging up mint under her patio stones. You can't kill it. You mow the lawn, all you smell is peppermint. So if you're not planning on staying somewhere forever, just be conscientious of what you're planting because you're making it somebody else's problem. If you like mint that much, that's fine. Buy the biggest pot you can buy so that that mint can be in a large pot and you have a large quantity, but don't be throwing things in the ground. I think we need to be a bit more careful. I know we're in the gardening community. We love buying seeds. We love, love, love. Yes, but certain plants you really need to do, especially herbs, because herbs tend to be very invasive. Most of them are relatives of the mint plant. When I'm digging deeper, they're relatives of the mint plant, and you know how mint goes. Um, ivy. Let me just keep up with the chat. Ivy is a problem, and it climbs your building. And good luck getting rid of that. Lions, fish, parrots, and constrictor snakes are invasive to the U.S. Yeah. Good morning, G Mama. And I'm just what did I miss? Exactly. Plants grow and spread either vertically, horizontally, or both. So I do like evening primrose. I like what it's about, but I am gonna make sure that when it goes to seed, hey Jegs, if I'm not intending on really doing anything with it, I have to clip the flowers right away. Even the flowers I have in my flower garden, I don't mind when they spread naturally, but I do need to be mindful and prune the flowers off early on they'll shoot some more up and just keep things down and controlled. Well, the hemp does spread. The ones that I got in the backyard, I didn't plant them. The birds planted them for me because they ate all the seeds off, and I guess they sprayed some of them, and some of them germinated by themselves. And because I can recognize the plant, I knew what it was, and I moved them and I transplanted them. But I didn't plant any cannabis this year, not one. I had 5, and they were all volunteers. But the squirrel took off those 2, so I might see cannabis popping up in the yard. Hopefully, I do, 'cause I can transplant them. And those ones, they didn't do well, but the fact that they germinated on their own outside and went through the entire winter, a Toronto winter in the cold, and they germinated, those are good seeds. So I wanted to keep those seeds from this last one, but they snapped them off. So maybe my neighbor might see whatever. If I see them across the fence, I'm going to dig them up next year. Oh, but the other varieties, yeah. So just be mindful, guys. I know, I think we have to get to a new my lemon balm is invading my neighbor's side of their house. Oh Lord. You better dig that up. But I like lemon balm exactly. It's a mint's cousin. These are great plants to have. I'm not saying they're not. I'm gonna always be growing herbs, but you can't just be throwing everything in the ground. You have to really do some more research because some things compete with each other and it's not beneficial to you. You're gonna cause a problem. And I know people don't want everything controlled, like, oh, everything's just so controlled in plants and pots. You have to start off that way because you have to determine if you want to keep this plant, if it's beneficial to you. Maybe someone's gonna be allergic to it in your household. You're like, I'm done with this plant. It's hard to kill these. I'm telling you, these it's like roaches. You can't kill them so easily. They just keep coming back. So just be careful because I'm seeing a lot of issues with invasiveness with either animals, even the fish, plants, the insects. And you have to take the time to watch what's happening in your own garden, your backyard, and in your community and see what's happening. So these red bugs, which are said to be a squash bug cousin or something, I don't know. I'm going to look it up. This is a problem. And hey, Rambo, if this is a problem, how is it going to affect our crops? Because you have to now take it from your garden and take it to commercial growing because I'm in Ontario. Is this going to affect crops, crops in greenhouses? Is this going to affect the prices of crops because we have an invasive bug? I don't know. I'm just saying it gets you thinking. So you have to kind of think, what are they doing for these bugs? You planted 2 Canadian herbs this season, great harvest waiting on a big frost. Herbs are fantastic. You can't go wrong. The amount of things I'm still finding out about herbs that I've known about and I use, it's phenomenal. They have so much healing properties. I've had to double down in my new area. All kinds of pests are out. Yeah, yeah. There's a problem. I didn't have as much problems on a black widow in the what? Lord have mercy. And even that reminds me too, Jay. I had a couple of spiders and I left them alone because they're eating the flies. But they make their nests like web right in the walkway. And it's like every time I'm like, what's this thing in my eye? And then they keep rebuilding it. It's like, do you not see that I walk here every like 4 times a day? Can you take go higher with it? So I had to talk. I'm like, spider. So then the spider, I think he heard me because the next day the web was much higher and out of the way, but he still attached it to my fig tree. So I'm like, the fig tree can move at any given time, right? Anyways, but I left the spiders alone, but there's spiders coming out. So we have to step away from spraying everything and killing everything. It's not working. We're making these bugs resistant to the chemicals. We're making them resistant. So we need to step back and just, smash them, take a broom and knock them down and, kill them the old fashioned way, allegedly. But don't be spraying all these chemicals. It doesn't make sense. If you're spraying in your house a one bug here and there, but going out, does it make sense to you? Does it make sense to take your buckle of Raid? Let me just take this eyeglass cleaner buckle. to take your bottle of spray. I'm going to go outside in nature where they belong and I'm going to spray them. It's like going to somebody else's house and spraying them in their face. Does that make sense to you? We're in their house. They were here first. So I don't know how people are going out with all these spray and no, please don't do that. First of all, it doesn't make no damn sense. Second of all, we're making them resistant to these sprays because we're overusing the sprays. So now they're like, it doesn't bother them anymore. Very disrespectful spiders. Yeah, Charlotte's Web. So I don't really spray. I use, natural neem oil. I'll use diatomaceous earth. Obviously, you don't use too much because it's going to kill the worms and you don't want to kill your pollinators. So you have to do things and use them in the right way. Just because I'm mentioning products does not mean you go out and just use the product. You have to learn how to use the product and when to use the product. And you always try preventative measures first because any product that you use, even natural, has a negative effect. And for most of us, we do not want to damage and kill things that are enhancing our soil. But if you have to use a bit of DE, you use a little bit, but you don't go overboard because it will kill the worms and it will kill bees. So you do not put DE on your blossoms. You leave that alone so that the bees can come to the flowers and do their thing. You do not put those things on the blossoms. And you usually don't put those things on in the morning because that's when the bees come out. The bees come to pollinate in the morning and get their food. So you do certain things in the late afternoon, early evening. Yes, neem kills bees. I don't spray neem on things that flower. I spray neem on my broccoli. Ain't no and my green, like my brassicas. Bees aren't coming to the brassicas. They only come to the brassicas the second year because guess what? Again, they're biennial. So the second year when they've gone to seed anyways, I leave them alone. Whatever bugs are on them and let the bugs have them. All I'm waiting for is the seeds. So I'll get some seeds. I'll get probably some aphids too, but you leave them alone and you'll see the bees coming. Let them have it. You have to know when to use certain products, when in terms of what time life cycle of the plant to use them, what time of day to use them, and when you need to use them. Because sometimes you just hose with water is enough for certain things. Sometimes that's enough. Sometimes baking soda or is enough. So don't go out here overboard. Oh, I heard that neem oil, and then you're spraying everything with neem, everything's just greasy. No, you use things when you need to. Sometimes it's a slug damage. All you have to do is remove the slug, put a little salt, use the right tool for the right problem. And sometimes if you have one plant that's infested and the rest are not, let the bugs have the one plant because that protects your other plants. You don't have to spray anything. That's your sacrifice plant. Let them have that one plant. When you harvest your good stuff, then you go and burn up that one plant. You got to be smart, man. You can't be out here overusing products. And going out to spray your plants is also time and energy. You have to use your time and energy wisely. Now, if you have I had one plant that was infested with aphids. My one good early Jersey cabbage. I sprayed that with neem. I sprayed with everything I did because I'm eating that cabbage. I hosed it down as well a couple of days later. I sprayed it again. So all we're going to do is what we did at my parents' house. We took those greens and we soaked them in a bucket of soapy water outside. We cleaned them as much as possible, hose them down, and they were fine. And we canned those greens actually. We cleaned them, we washed them, we sprayed them, we separated each leaf outside because we don't want aphids in the house because your indoor garden will be ruined. You have to know what to do. You either sacrifice it or you do a little spray in the late evening. No matter what you do not spray soap and water, vinegar and water, neem and whatever you're using in the daytime. It will put a barrier on the leaf and the sun will literally cook it. You don't want that. You have to use things at the right time of day and the right time during the plant's life cycle. And we listen to people when it's, oh, we're going off here, there, and there. No. Everybody's in a different state, different province, different zone, different whatever, different microclimate. You have to pay attention to what you're doing and observe and see what's happening in your garden space or your future garden space. Because maybe you're new and you're gone to a new property and you're starting from scratch. You may be an expert at gardening, but you need to take the time to watch and look and see what's going on. You need to see where the sun hits and where it's shady. You need to watch where the birds congregate. You need to watch and see what's happening. See if this is a walkthrough for deer. You need to take time and pay attention and not just go off and I've been gardening for 40 years and I'm an expert and I wrote 10 books. You could write 10 books. I don't care. You haven't grown in that particular property. That is a different property with different problems. You need to take time to observe because that is going to give you the best results because not every product is for everybody and for every location. I've been spraying because it's a lot of fungus and mildew. Yes, my backyard has a lot of powdery mildew. I may have to use more baking soda than other people. And before I go to my next comment, but let me just read the chat. I don't use sprays in my garden, Nikki's saying. I hand pick pests or use water. Yeah. And some people don't want to touch bugs. That was me, but now put on my gloves or even no gloves. Ping, ping. Because you know that you want to grow organic food. You don't want the chemicals. Let me see here. This year I haven't used anything and I got food. I probably ate some bugs when I'm in the yes. Yep. I can't stand agents. What? Who talking about agent or agent? No, sir. Yeah, wild turkeys cleaned wheat plants. And I gave my wheat plants to my chicken as chicken feed. That's excellent protein for them. So sometimes we're upset about things. It's all part of the cycle. And the more you expand your cycle, your gardening cycle, the better you off are. So for instance, before I had chickens, it was a huge, controversy. Oh my God, how dare these aphids? But I just consider it now chicken feed. They eat the chicken, eat the greens. They give me manure, which is excellent because chicken manure is very, very good and it's very expensive. I'm getting it from them. And I get an egg. The egg production's gone down because they're molting again, but the manure right now is more valuable than the eggs. But I am going to be getting some younger girls. A full life cycle. If I have leaves that have leaf minor damage, I throw them in there. It's feeding. So we need to get back to a full circle gardening, homesteading kind of environment. That way we would get better results. If we're just growing food, we're limited in our understanding and our expectations because we're not as diverse as we think we are. When you start adding in other elements to your garden, your flowers, your vegetables, your fruit trees, you're adding in livestock, you're adding in, composting, you're adding in compost tea section, you're adding things. You're going to see more diversity and you're going to have more balance. You're never going to have the perfect environment. As long as it's balanced, that's all you care about. Now back to I was watching somebody on the Instagram, somebody that I learned about through Broke Farmer, and I don't think Broke Farmer is a fan of this person. So oddly enough, it's funny, but the person was talking about baking soda and it doesn't do X, Y, and Z. I don't want to misquote the person, but what they're saying is probably true. I think people are trying to change either the pH of the soil or doing something nutrients and the plant cannot uptake it. That may be true. So I mentioned in a comment, I said, well, what about powdery mildew? I was told to use milk and or baking soda for powdery mildew. I didn't get a direct answer, but there was another video talking about that and using hydrogen peroxide. That may be correct. I'm not knocking anything. But then you're looking at price point, and that's where things change your decision, the price point and the availability. But let me pause for a second and get into the back into the chat. Yep, powdery mildew. And next year I'm gonna do what growing out the box does because it's a problem. Powdery mildew ruined my cucumbers and my squashes. I have white fly on my brassicas and they ain't done much damage, just them slugs. Yep, I had a lot of slug damage, but I just kept my eye on them and kept flinging them off. And I would fling them in the chicken coop. Shell and all, or the ones with no shell. I would fling them in the chicken coop and they were like, what's this? And they realized, oh, and they would gobble that up. I didn't spray nothing. Otherwise, they would have got a salt bath. Let me see. Hey, Darren. Baking soda and milk. Exactly. So they said to use hydrogen peroxide. That may be correct. One second. I need your mailing address again. The last package. Yeah. What last package? I mean the one from way, way back when I gave you the wrong address? Mistyped it? Yeah. Okay. Oh, it was returned. Okay. At least you got it back. I thought someone stole it. I have aphids this because I have a lot of nasturtium. I had nasturtium this year, and I think it helped a bit. So I did not plant as much as I wanted to, but I am gonna plant a lot of nasturtiums. I thought nasturtiums were a trap crop. They are. But when you have calendula, they like the calendula more. So I planted calendula for the herb, properties to harvest the flowers, which I did. I got maybe a half a pint jar of flowers. I didn't transplant them and spread them out so they could really blossom. They were all crammed together. So that was, again, sometimes you don't have time and space to do what you want. But I got some, but there were also aphids, and I had to really wash them with soapy water outside to make sure they didn't come in the house because I don't want them in the house to ruin my indoor garden. It's October, so that means I'm gonna be planting maybe in mid-November. Hey, 10. So the calendula is a trap crop. So just be mindful. It wasn't a big problem, wasn't a huge problem. They had a lot of options of what to go to because I had brassicas and this, that, and the third. But nasturtiums is a trap crop, but I had them next to the calendula, and they chose the calendula. So spread out your nasturtiums throughout your garden and the calendula. Don't try to be matchy. Hey, broke farmer, like I am, and have everything perfectly matchy. Spread them out into different zones in your property so you can figure out, okay, the aphids are heavy in that quadrant. And maybe that quadrant you're not going to plant your brassicas in. You're going to have to divide your backyard or your acreage to figure out where bugs are more prevalent. And you can kind of rotate things out. So you may plant one brassica in that quadrant with those other ones to kind of trap them over there, but really you have all your other brassicas over there. Like you got to be smarter because if you don't want to use chemicals, like most of us do not, you're going to have to observe what's happening on your property, and your neighbor's property is going to affect you, and what they do will affect you, and vice versa. But if your neighbor has a lot of fruit trees like mine does, the squirrels have other things to worry about. But you do have to cover your crops because they just very bad mind. Now back to the baking soda. So the person that I watched, which Broke Farmer does not like, but I'm watching this person now because they're kind of funny. I don't know how feasible it is to use hydrogen peroxide on powdery mildew. I'm not saying it doesn't work. What I'm saying is, once you mix hydrogen peroxide, they usually come in those dark bottles. Even if you pour some in a spray bottle in the garden, it's now been exposed to light because the bottles that you use are like, they're not see-through, but they're kind of translucent. That's going to degrade the hydrogen peroxide. So you can only mix so much at a time, number one. Hydrogen peroxide isn't overly cheap when you have a large garden because one little bottle is about $1 something at the dollar store. Maybe you can get some at Costco. Maybe, you can get a big jug somewhere, but it's not really the cheapest option when you have a large garden and you have to spray your garden for powdery mildew. I think it's at least every 10 days. So every 10 days, you're spraying as a preventative to prevent the powdery mildew from taking over your cucumbers, your melons, and other plants of that nature. Hydrogen peroxide is probably going to add up, in my opinion. I didn't do the math, but it's going to add up. And now you're talking to somebody who has animals who can buy a 25 bag of pound of baking soda from the feed store, put them in 2 5-gallon buckets. Hey, analytic gardener, I now have baking soda to use to soak my fruits and veggies, to make the spray for powdery mildew, to use in the chicken coop, to use in the garden for pH, which you said doesn't work, but you can still use it, to use as a laundry detergent. That's 5 things now, laundry detergent, to make a paste for cleaning, stoves and other things, and also to make toothpaste. So that's 7 things out of a 25 pound bag of baking soda that costs about $20 something. When you're talking about budgeting and multiple uses, baking soda to me is a better option. I'm just saying. So sometimes people are giving you advice. It may be the right advice, scientifically based, but we live in the real world. And for me, the real world is baking soda has more use in my life than hydrogen peroxide. Now, do I use peroxide? I do, mostly for the hydroponics because I have no choice. So that's where I use distilled water and peroxide. But in an outdoor garden that's expanding by the day, and potentially I might be renting 2 acres from the conservation area, peroxide ain't going to go very far. And once I mix it in the bottle, it has a certain life now because it's been exposed to light. It's going to start to degrade. So I don't know if people are really thinking through the answers because it's a different thing when you're planting house plants. Because a lot of these scientists are house plant people. They don't have no big garden. And all their knowledge that they have, you're not seeing proof in the pudding. Not only is there no proof in the pudding, there is no pudding, there is no pudding cup, and there is not even a spoon. Some of these people have a smaller plot size than you do. They don't even have a backyard. They're lucky if they have a balcony. And they're telling you how to grow food, which is fine, because I'm not telling anybody what to do over here. Make your own decision. You kind of say, you know what? If Howie Food Forest tells me something, Psalms tells me something, Rambo Green Hands, Broke Farmer, G Mama, just to name a few, OCD-ish chick, you might take their advice without even doing any research. You know why? Because they got proof in the pudding. They got a pudding, they have a cake, they have icing, they have the little silver balls on the icing. They have a whole cake. They're growing food. They're succession planting. They have fruit trees. They're showing you what they're doing. They're eating food from their garden. They're making recipes. They're preserving the food. Like there's a whole thing going on. Versus somebody who has a BA, master's, PhD, doctorate, whatever letters behind their name, and you're growing houseplants. Do I give a crap about your damn houseplant and how lush the damn houseplant is? Is that gonna feed the people in the hurricane in Florida and the Carolinas and the whatever the other place they call the Appalachians and all them? Is that houseplant gonna change the world? Maybe in the scientific world, maybe, but in the real world where we live, I don't really care about your houseplant. No offense, just saying. I don't really care about your houseplant. Let me just go back to the chat. Calendula is notorious. Well, nobody told me. I was growing it to be, medicinal herbs. Oh no, I learned that you can't beat nature. You can only be balanced in nature to thrive. I watch my neighbor and the greens is chewed up. I look at the greens in the food forest and not a. I'm telling you, if Howie tells me something, I'm gonna listen because he's doing it. Versus somebody who has a degrees and they're growing house plants. Like I don't understand it. Like I think I'm kind of salty now because I broke warming about the person. I got sucked in, and now I'm like, I don't like you. I like you, but I don't like you because you're not helping me. I planted nasturtium one, not the seed are all over the place. The seeds look like chickpeas too. The nasturtium seeds will come back next year, but I need to keep it under control. And again, nasturtium is a good chicken feed. Chickens like them, and it helps. So I heard kill parasites. So a lot of the plants, I make sure that they're also compatible with my chickens, except nightshades. They can't eat the plants, but it's okay. Hydrogen peroxide only works for soil pests, not winged. You see? So he was saying for powdery mildew. I planted nasturtium once now. They're all over the whole place. They drop a ton of. Yes, you have to. The seeds are like chickpeas, so at least you can see them. So I picked them up and I put them in the in my seed bin for next year. So hey Annalik, I said hi to you already, but just in case I missed you, buy peroxide by the gallon because I clean and use it with my. Okay, exactly. So that would make sense, but I'm not gonna waste it on my outdoor gardening unless it just seemed a little like it wasn't really meeting the needs of the people. When I have powder mildew, I just remove the leaves. I do, but it wasn't enough, Rambo. The the weather this year, it was not. It was the weather and the constant warm, cold, humidity. Everything was getting powdery. I'm talking about even my mint was getting powdery mildew. My bee balm, which I was looking forward to, I had to just throw it all out. Powdery mildew. Everything was getting powder. Even the flowers that wouldn't were getting powdery mildew. Something was in the air and it was just taking over the whole place. So removing the leaves, yes, I do that, but in this case, it was too much. So now I'm going to spray them like we were told every 10 days as a preventative because you don't know what your weather's going to be each season. It's the grace of God sometimes and you might get too much moisture, too much cool air. We need to make sure that we have the tools in our toolbox for when we need them. That's the point. We wait until we have a problem to learn about a solution, and by that time, it may be too late. Your garden may not be able to sustain while you're figuring it out. We know that powdery mildew is a problem. Milk seems to be the solution, the way, and or baking soda, either of the two. If you know that it works, and the amount of food that I'm growing and the amount of expansion that I'm going to be doing next year, possibly adding on the 2 acres, I don't have time to wait and see. And that's what a lot of us are kind of like trying to balance. Do I wait and see or do I do something? I don't mind spraying as a preventative the baking soda because I'm not spraying things that are going to need pollination per se. And it's not going to do too much damage if I'm spraying it every 10 days or 14 days. And I'm only spraying the leaves. I'm not spraying willy-nilly, just spraying what I need to and observing if it needs to be sprayed. If I spray it every 10 days and I see that it's doing fine, I can maybe increase the distance between each spraying session. Because sometimes we're growing food in a climate, and if we wait too long, that powdery mildew is going to hop from plant to plant. And that's what happened. And I got a couple of good cucumbers, but the vine was useless. And it should have lasted my entire growing. It should have kept giving me fruit and food, and it didn't. It was withering and just mm-mm. But yes, if you have a small infestation, yes, remove the leaves. When you're having a climatic problem where your climate is just weird due to things beyond your control, you may need to pull out the spray gun and just be spraying as a preventative if you need to. But that's the whole point I'm talking about. You have to be observing your own garden to know, is this time to cut off a few limbs or is it time for me to really plant? And that's what you have to decide because the information is there, but sometimes we're applying it blanketly because so and so did it. Yeah, so and so did it, and it does work. It's correct. But sometimes you're adding too much work to yourself by just following every instruction. Watch what's happening. If you need to implement it, then go ahead, but don't just, my cake is chocolate. Okay, you're talking about yeah. Some of these people that are giving us advice are houseplant growers. I'm telling you. They buy their food from the grocery store. Yes, nasturtium is edible. It's like spicy like arugula. It's very nice. I like it. I like spicy greens. Some people don't, but I love pepper. Um, you can prune nasturtiums hard and they will grow back, especially when they're yellow. Oh yeah. So next time I know that calendula is also a trap crop, so I'm not gonna plant it near my other stuff like I did. I'm gonna put it up top with the powdery mildew section, and hopefully that will help something up there. That mint, wow, that's crazy. Yeah, the mint, it was my ginger mint too. I love ginger mint. So I see that it's kind of clearing up now, which is great. I did do a little spritz, not much, just a little spritz of baking soda and water. I did spray some neem in the last couple of days just to make sure that certain things aren't infested because I'm moving the plants into the low tunnel. I'm trying to extend my harvest this year. Broccoli does not need to be put in a low tunnel. They can stay out in the cold, but I'm just trying to just keep them from bugs and the damn squirrels. So I planted some seeds last night again. Lettuce, giant noble spinach. I planted some sorrel, the leafy green sorrel, and some red lettuce. I forgot the name of the red lettuce. And I don't see any damage to the tent, so I guess the squirrels are kind of like leaving it alone. So hopefully I'm going to get some germination from these seeds. If I do, then that means going forward I can be planting as late as October probably September next time though, and have them put under the tent and basically have a salad bar up until maybe December if all goes well because it's protected. And if I have a problem, I'll add an extra layer of plastic over the greenhouse to give that extra layer. But I'm going to be eating food well into the winter. But yeah, I did not know that mint could get powdery mildew, but it will hop from other plants, because the powdery mildew was not even near the mint. It was at the very back. But sometimes as you're pruning, you're gardening, you're doing stuff, I don't know, birds and squirrels bringing stuff around, it can be moved inadvertently by your tools, your hands moving stuff, by many things, because you have to clean up your garden. So sometimes you're inadvertently spreading stuff. So you might just have to spray your plant just to keep it from infesting your garden. That's the plan, Rambo. I have access to lease the 2 acres, so I might just lease it and use it as a case study and start selling produce to the local community and the local church. That's what I'm trying to do. And be more not self-sufficient. There's another guy that I found on Instagram and TikTok. He's from Georgia. I really like his vibe. He talks about collective sustainability, because the self-sufficiency or collective sufficiency, there's no such thing as self-sufficiency. It doesn't exist. You cannot do everything by yourself. You have to have a community and a network. So, ginger mint, please tell all Urban. Ginger mint is delicious, but it got the powdery mildew. I have 2 other mints, peppermint and mojito mint. Lemon balm as well. I don't see powdery mildew. So something, I either touch something, or maybe the pruning shears or something. It could be me inadvertently, or it could be that plant was just maybe not getting enough water and it was just not strong enough. But the ginger mint got it. But the ginger mint is fine. I took it off, sprayed it. The new stuff is coming in. It's looking fantastic. Oh, the lettuce. No, it's not solar flare lettuce, but it's probably, some of these names are all the same plant, but different names. It's a red lettuce. It's leafy like a burpee bib, like a bib lettuce, but it's red. Ginger mint is, I don't know if you're asking me, Howie, but okay, all the mints that I have. I'm looking for chocolate mint. Ginger mint is nice. I bought it from the nursery. I was always complaining that we don't have the variety in Canada, but I went to this Asian store and they had a seedling section outside the store in the parking lot, fenced off, in the early summer, late spring. And I got a few things from them, and the ginger mint was one of them. And the mojito mint I already had, but I just saw a mint for the first time on my life 2 weeks ago. I took out the tag completely, and there's a mojito written there in script writing, cursive writing. I didn't even see that part. It must have been in the dirt. So it's mojito mint. If you don't know what that is or haven't had it, it is so nice in drinks. I would put it in my watermelon juice. I would put it in the juicer and put with my honeydew melon juice. It has a lovely flavor. Peppermint now to me is like passe, but I do love peppermint. But the mojito mint and the ginger mint. I haven't tried chocolate mint, and I just bought the mint. It's a mint that Tigsy recommended, and it's the Mexican sunflower. And it's also called something else. She mentioned it in Broke's Live as well. It has 2 names, so sometimes it's the same plant though, but the Mexican sunflower, I'm going to plant that. And I also have what Renaissance recommended, the Greek mountain mint. So those are 2 mints I'm going to be adding to my mint salad bar, I guess, whatever you want to call it, in some big pots. I'm going to look for chocolate mint. If I see it at the nursery next spring, I'm going to definitely buy it. Because I heard so much of people talking about how good the chocolate mint is. I did not know there was other kinds of mints until really getting into the gardening thing. I thought it was just peppermint and spearmint and maybe a black mint. We call in Jamaica like a black mint. Did not even know all these other mints. And now I'm like, forget peppermint. I'm done with that. I'm done with you. We breaking up. Yeah, I'm going to buy one more low tunnel. They're still on sale for $30 and people don't really buy from that store. They're not into gardening. So I'm gonna go over there today, hopefully, or tomorrow, and get one more low tunnel to keep some of the other plants safe for the winter. Fungi spread powdery mildew so it grows, and yeah. So just be mindful that any plant that you think does not get powdery mildew, it's possible. I have chocolate mint and goes good with new potatoes boiled. Oh, it does? Ooh. Also, you boil it with the while you're boiling potatoes, you're boiling the mint in it. That's interesting. I can try that. So that's my talking for today. I gotta get going because as you know, it gets dark here at 7 o'clock. So I have a certain window of time. But I will say a whole bunch of stuff is going on here at my city. I have a house that I'm renting out now because it wasn't selling, and I don't know what happened with the plumbing problems. The whole plumbing stack needs to be changed. So girl's gonna be working overtime just in case to make sure I have cash. 'Cause I don't want to be putting things on credit. I'm breaking up a peppermint. Yeah, the other mints we're together, but the peppermint you can go away. So there's a lot of stuff going on. I'm gonna be running up and down, but when it rains, it pours. But we're not gonna complain. It's thankfulness, and God is gonna provide, and He's gonna meet all the needs. It's things what you realize when you get a little older. I'm a little older now, just a little bit wiser. Getting all riled up is not going to change the situation. Just deal with it and always try to have a contingency plan because it's always it's going to be your turn eventually, and it's just my turn. So make sure you have a contingency plan. You have a savings. You have skills because when it rains, it pours. And we have a very good plumber, but there's some things especially in light of the hurricanes and all that's happening, there's some skills that you just need because sometimes people don't have the time because they have other jobs and emergency plumbing jobs they got to go and do. So it's good to have some skills yourself because you just don't know. Take care, Howie. We'll see you later. So just while you're here, gardening for us who are in the cold, we're going to be planning for the spring garden, outdoor garden that is, and what we're going to plant and where and how we're going to improve. We're going to get the indoor garden going, but just be mindful of enhancing what you're doing and learning more tangible hands-on skills because sometimes you're going to be in situations where you're not going to be able to get the tradespeople to be there. It's just too busy. They're just too busy. Plumbing jobs can cause you a lot of damage to your home and rental property. It's very difficult. So when it comes to preserving, I started pressure canning this season. I'm enjoying it. I don't know, like I know there's some things that don't can well and some things that just don't taste well, good canned. But for the most part, I'm going to can what I already enjoy eating and what I've purchased from the store in a can myself. So most Caribbean people, if you're not in the Caribbean, you have eaten canned callaloo at one point or another because once you grow and your gardening's finished, you have some in the freezer. When it run out. So you bought canned callaloo. I bought canned ackee before. I bought, certain things you buy in the can. I'm gonna make sure I'm gonna go apple picking this year just to, jar up some apples. I need some more tomatoes. I didn't get a lot of tomatoes. I ate a lot of tomatoes this year. I ate a lot of tomatoes, but I want to make some more sauces. And my family actually made some pasta with the sauce that we made. They never did it before. They love the taste. So now that they're eating, they realize, oh, it tastes good. So we're just trying to can and preserve what we like to eat. I'm not going to be doing anything, out of the ordinary, but fruits. I like peaches. Canned peaches are fine. Apples. I've always loved canned pears. So buy the farmer's market, buy the case, and I'm just going to can and have these things because it's better for everybody involved. We know what's in the food. We know there's no, chemicals. Well, maybe some, but probably not. And there's no sugar added to it, just some cinnamon and a little bit of whatever. Yeah, callaloo is very good. So I canned a lot of it. I have to post the thing on Instagram, the video and the little pictures, but it came out well. I did get a bit of siphoning. I probably overfilled the jar just a bit, didn't leave enough headspace. Whatever, you live and you learn, but they're all sealed. They're all doing well. I had to wash the jars after to keep the stickiness off of it, but that can be a meal. I'm going to be canning some beans. For all those who watch Homestead Heart, she talked about it again, and it's true. Like if the power or something happens, yeah, you may have a bucket full of beans, but Do you have the means to cook it if your power's out? If you're in shambles, you have to relocate. Taking a jar of canned beans that's already cooked, it's just a matter of warming it up. So sometimes we got to be willing to just put in the work so that when we need it, we can use it. I have used canned beans to make rice and peas, the Jamaican style rice and peas or rice and beans. It's not the same as making it from, scratch because you use the water that you use to boil the beans to add the color to the rice, but it was still very tasty. But if you can your own stuff, you can control that. So just be mindful. Try to preserve as much as you can now because weather is popping up in the weirdest places. Places that don't have floods are having floods. There's a fire in the States now, some big old fire that I haven't heard about, only on Instagram, burning and burning all kind of like, just be ready so that you have food to eat and supplies to eat. And keep your preps to yourself because I'm seeing people getting looted and all kind of, and it didn't even take long for that to start. Like literally 2 days and people are looting. They wanted to loot. That's what people are. There's people who are just wicked and evil. And once the power's out, they know your alarm's not working. Here they come. So make sure you know where your tools are. Hint, hint. Because a lot of people who you think, wouldn't be doing that are taking advantage of people who are in need. It's not funny. Um, Planting beets and picking kiwis might go live today your climate is just crazy to me, Howie. Kiwis, Dan is a fantastic food forest. Oh yeah, Dan's food forest, but he changed the name. Well, it's permaculture food, but anyways, Dan. He has an excellent food forest. Um, okay, so I'm gonna go now. Have a great day. Happy Thanksgiving to my Canadians, and I'll see you, God willing, next week. Things are kind of cooling out, but it's just crazy over here in these streets, literally. Um, be kind to yourself, be kind to others. Think about what I said and try to make some implementations for your garden next season. We need to be more mindful, more demure, more thing going on. Be intentional in your gardening and what you're doing and why you're doing it and what you're incorporating, and don't just plant everything willy-nilly because a lot of things are very invasive. All right, take care. Don't forget to hit the thumbs up button when you leave. It helps the algorithm, helps the channel, and we'll see you all next week. All right, take care.